shit. Nope, that's not going to work. Well, I'm going to have to edit that. All right, that's fine. Here goes nothing.
Leave it in.
Yeah, it's fine. Gig Gab, episode 498 for September 8th, National Ampersand Day 2025. Yeah, ampersands, man. Nope. That's not going to work either. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Gig Gab, the show by, for, and about working musicians. Our sponsors for today are the MLC.com, because that's where you're going to go to sign up for all the royalties that you are missing from all the streaming services. They've pulled it all together for you. And Claude.ai/GigGab, where you can go and get 50% off of Claude Pro. We'll talk more about both of those in a little bit. For now, here on National Ampersand Day in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton. And for as our guest co-host today, we are rejoined again by one of our favorite guests. You've heard his mixes out front for everyone, from Rush to Florence and the Machine, and many others in there, Linkin Park and all sorts of stuff. And you've heard his stories here on Gig Gab before. Today, he's going to bring us into the future with REMI, remote integration for live music broadcasting. And we'll dig into how this is going to change things, the way shows get mixed and shared. Plus, we'll tap into his deep well of experience and learn all kinds of things. Let's get into it with Brad Madix. Brad, thank you so much for joining me yet again, my friend.
My pleasure. Happy to be here again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fun stuff, man.
Yeah.
I think we should, unless you've got something burning to share, I want to know what this REMI thing is.
You want to let's dive right into that?
Why not? Like, we're nerds. It's okay to be nerds together. So, yeah. But well, I guess I should ask you. You have not been on the road you did. Did you do any front of house dates or anything this summer?
Summer. This year I did, June and July were very busy. I had a couple of dates with Florence and the Machine, the private shows.
Got it. Yep.
Tenerife and Florence, Italy. And then I recorded the Ozzy Sabbath Back to the Beginning concert in Birmingham.
What?
And then flew which we'll talk about that because that was amazing. But flew straight back from there to California to do 2 weeks with a thing called Festival Napa Valley, which is a sort of classical focused symphonic thing that happens out in the winery in Napa. It's this beautiful setting.
That's cool.
And then I've been home for about a month. And spend most of the year working on the thing I hope we can spend some time talking about, REMI.
Yeah, we'll talk about REMI, but we're going to talk about this Ozzy thing first, because that's pretty cool, man. Great, yeah. I mean, we really haven't talked about Ozzy on the show yet since he passed. So, this is it's timely for us here. But you were there, so what? Talk about this. What was this?
So my role was to record everything. I went and put together a system over in London, an Avid console and Pro Tools and redundant Pro Tools recorder, and headed over to rehearsals in Redditch, which is Fly By Night. It's a big rehearsal studio.
Yep.
There, and in the general vicinity of Birmingham. And we were there for a few days, and Sabbath would come in and play through the show. Anyway, basically my job was, if there was ever any principal in the building, I was recording everything. So Bill Ward would come in and practice, and I recorded that. And so, all of those things. And then we moved it over to the what do they call it? The pitch, the soccer stadium.
Yeah, right.
Aston Villa. And we had like 2 days of people loading in and sound checking and recorded all of that, and then the show as well. So I was like there to document all of it in audio. Uh,
Wow.
I wasn't person wasn't responsible for the broadcast mix, but we did a lot of the logistical routing went through our control room. So in other words, we had bands up on the stage using our stage box, but also some bands were handing off MADI stems.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
so we were switching. We had um, a direct out Prodigy that had like all these MADI lines coming into it on fiber, and we were distributing clock all over the place and reclocking things. And we would bring the things in. We would line check the show. We would, the next band up would be on a MADI feed to us, while the band that was playing was being broadcast. We would line check that band and then switch when we had a stream deck, which basically we hit a button and it would switch to the MADI feeds that were coming in from the other room down the hall. We would feed that out to the truck that did. So we recorded it and then they did the broadcast. But we were
Wow.
we were basically responsible for all the audio routing and switching that happened um, between all the bands that brought their own gear. Were just sending us everything already in digital. So. Um, some bands sent us, stemmed, broken down, and some bands it was the whole multi-track, all 64 channels of MADI. So I had an assistant with me. He would go through on the Prodigy and listen
Yeah.
down, all the kick, snare, whatever, all the way down the input list. And then we just hit a button and it all just switched over.
Switched over to be
Uh,
live.
Switched over to
Oh,
live, yeah, and then recalled the mix from the sound check. Anyway, it
from
was it when I first saw the schedule, and I don't know if you saw any of this thing, but they were doing like 7-minute changeovers. So
what?
the challenge was it was like it was really challenging to get like to figure out just to set it up in such a way that we could turn over from all of these sources, including the production sources. So we had a whole other stage rack that was like the video playback and all the audience mics and the presenters, all of those things. And we had to accommodate that. It was 256 inputs, and switching. So I mean, I don't know.
Switching. Yes,
I don't even know
64 at
what
a
the
time or whatever.
the
Yep.
total was. Actually, more than that, but in the in the but if I had to guess, it was probably 350 inputs total. Um,
Wow.
256 at any given time.
Right, right.
And
And so would 256 be sort of the band that's on stage plus the band that's going to be line checking plus the one that just got off stage and you got to get them out of the system? Is that kind of where that would
it
come from?
was it, uh we had two sets, actually three sets of 64 channels of analog in, so that we would have a band on the A stage and a band on the B stage, and they would be plugged into that. Then we would also have 64 channels of all the production elements, all the, so it's 32 audience mics or something like that. All the presenters mics and the video playback, and there was a DJ between sets, all that stuff coming into that. And then 64 lines from the other room where we would be setting up for a band that was going to be coming up two bands later. Um, it went really well. I mean, it's like
Wow.
it was crazy, but everybody was so on board. We were actually running almost 20 minutes early at one point. They told us we had to slow down basically because we were too far
Wow.
ahead. Which when they said that, I couldn't believe we got to that place. We were actually ahead of the game because
That's amazing.
I thought it was just going to scramble the whole time. But anyway, uh, it went really well. What I saw and heard of the stream, I thought was really good. Um, yeah, I mean, rousing success. I think and then we were sort of like, well, we'll see. we know they want to do something with, so I have all these hard drives
All
of
the
everything.
material. Yeah,
Right.
right.
And we know they're going to want to do something with this to post produce it in some way. And then,
Make sure
unfortunately,
you have
Ozzy,
that backed up, Brad. That's
I have
important
it
stuff.
in 4 places.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Unfortunately, Ozzy passed away. And so it's been a little kind of obviously the plans have changed, right? So I'm not really sure where that stands right now. I'm sure
Yep.
there will still be something that happens with it, but
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure where we're at with that. Hopefully sooner rather than later we can push something out.
That'd be amazing.
Um, yeah,
Wow.
so great, really great. I think
That's
it went really,
amazing.
really well. Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned something that I had never heard of before. And of course, because I can't do just one thing at a time, I looked it up while we were talking here. You mentioned
Sure.
MADI. I'd never heard of MADI before.
Okay. Mhm.
Multi-channel audio digital
Digital
interface.
interface, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, it's somewhat self-explanatory in that sense, plus contextualized by what you just described. It sounds like it's the band gets whatever they're doing and outputs it to this so that you can take it into whatever you're doing and you don't have to have all the same gear. Is that effectively what we're talking about here?
Right. So just to back up, contextualize this a little bit.
Please.
MADI,
Yes.
it is literally what it says: multi-channel audio digital interface. It's a digital over coax,
Okay.
but then more recently also over fiber.
Makes
Um,
sense.
there's two versions. There's a 56 channel version, but more often you'll see a 64 channel version.
Okay.
So one, depending on your sampling rate, one um, coax cable can carry 64 channels of 48K.
Oh, okay.
One coax cable can carry 32 channels of 96K, and so on.
Makes sense. Sure. Of course.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yep.
there's it was sort of falling out of use at some point of 20 something years ago, but it has been picked up in live for one thing, so you see it quite a bit in live audio, and also more and more studios are using it to move audio around from one part of the studio to another.
Oh,
So it's kind
yeah.
of like, I don't know if you're familiar with Dante network
Yeah,
audio.
yeah, it sounds kind of like Dante,
It's a little before,
but
it's like pre Dante, but there's also
but
no,
simpler. Yeah.
yeah, there's no networking it. It's channel one is channel one, channel 32 is
Ah.
channel 32 at both ends all the time. Now you can
Okay.
take
So
it and then you can take it and shuffle it on either end, but it's
sh-
not the
sure,
network. Yeah.
but it's direct connect. This is my
Mhm.
term. Direct connect Dante instead of networked
Yeah,
Dante, which is Dante is networked, obviously. Yeah.
it's fixed. It's a fixed audio
Fixed. Yeah.
flow. One is 164 is 64, and
Yep.
whatever you do with it at the end is up to you. But it's not like you can. I just want to pick off 32, or I just want to pick up 16 through 24. That's not how it works. It's literally was for shuttling digital audio from one place to another.
Makes sense.
Maybe from one machine to another.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No, and it looks
um,
like from what I'm reading that it's essentially bandwidth limited to 100 megabits, and you can do whatever you want with
yeah, that
that
sounds
100
right.
megabits
That
in
sounds
there.
right.
That's
That
just me
sounds right.
being a nerd, but
But
that's
it's like I said, two versions, 56 channels. It's called vary speed, which I guess you can vary speed it. Which
sure.
I'm I've never done that. I know there are some manufacturers that use 56 channels, but they use the other 8 channels for control.
Yep.
So 64, sorry, 56 channel MADI, but they use the last 8 channels for control.
Got it.
Um, it's more typical to see 64 channel uh, MADI. So
Fascinating.
depending on whether it's 46 or sorry 48 or 96K, you'll either have one or two uh, actual lines. But I mean, looking at it as non-networkable Dante is kind of a good way to get your head around what it
To
is.
just start there. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, this makes
and
perfect
yeah,
sense. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's not unusual these days to see a live console that has some way to spit out MADI. And so all the manufacturers, to the best of my knowledge, will have either built in or as an option a MADI output. And what we were doing at the show there was we had 5 or 6 of the bands had their front of house setups in a room down the hall backstage, and they
Right.
would send out of their setup a MADI line. It was about 100 feet down the line, down the hallway, and then we
Yeah.
just took that and whatever they were taking on that MADI line, we got, which was either the full analog, the full split one for one, so all the
Yeah.
instruments,
Yeah. Kick, snare,
individually,
hat, etc. Yep.
yeah, or a stemmed out that is somewhat pre-mixed version where like all the drums might be on
Oh, a
left and right.
two-channel thing or
Right.
something. Yeah,
So
right.
right. So
Okay.
we might get all the drums, bass, one guitar, second guitar, the vocal, dry vocal effects.
Okay.
So if you
Oh, so they're really doing a lot on that end, and then some of them doing a lot on that end, and then just sending you some
yeah,
post-ish
so
version of something.
like if you went back and listened to the Rival Sons set, which I thought they sounded particularly good personally,
Yep.
but they I think they sent me 18 channels, something like
Okay.
that. So it was like a pre-mixed drums. There was a separate snare reverb, stuff like that. So
Yep.
they had pieced it out so that what I got, I could, yeah, I would take all the faders and put them at 0, and then listen. And like I was like, well, okay, well, I'd like a little more of the dry vocal, a little less of the effects. Just
Sure.
make some balance adjustments. Uh, but for their set, I don't know. I mean, I don't remember doing much. It was kind of like when putting the faders at 0 and panning the lefts and the rights. And I think I did take their dry vocal. My recollection is I think I turned the dry vocal up for that. But
Sure.
again, I wasn't doing the broadcast. I was just
Yeah, it
doing that
wasn't
for
your. You
me.
weren't mixing, right?
So,
Yeah,
but the same
exactly.
thing was happening because we were just passing it. It was coming into us, and we were passing it out to the truck.
Sure.
So
Sure.
the same thing was going on out there in the broadcast. And then it was
Amazing.
really a matter of like, oh, and the other thing we did in that room was we did um, a audience mic mix down. So
Oh, I
we
see.
we had let's say like 12 mics across the front of the stage, and some mics up high, some shotgun mics up high pointing out at the side of the stage, and then out at front of house we had a 5.1 mic up on a pole about 20 feet up in the air, and then way at the back of the place we had another 5.1 mic up on a pole. And we
Wow.
did 2 submixes. We did a surround submix, and then we did a stem of all the audience mics along the front of the stage. The 5.1 mics are tricky to use live because of the
I,
distance from the
I
stage,
was just gonna
right?
say, aren't you getting? You gotta delay those, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Well, you got to delay everything else,
I was gonna say
right?
you need to delay everything to them. Yes, fair.
Right. Yeah.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah, it's like time zero suddenly moves from the front of the stage to the back of the auditorium,
right.
right?
So we did 2 separate stem mixes of those. I don't know if they got used live. They
Sure.
were there mostly for using in post production,
Huh.
in case we go back and they want to do some surround mic, but surround version or an Atmos version or whatever. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
we I we used they're DPA
I was just
5100s.
Are they the DPA 5100s? That's
Yeah,
yeah.
they are such a easy mic to work with, and there's sort of a lot of, yeah, it looks like a bicycle seat, right?
Huh.
There's a lot of versions of surround miking, This one folds down to stereo so nicely. It like,
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, I know it's just a bunch of little Omni mics kind of in a pattern around this uh, sort of triangle shaped thing. Um, but when you take that and just put it in stereo, like, fold it down to stereo, it just
yeah.
sounds so natural.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, it's a cool little mic, and it's a lot of bang for the buck.
Yeah, it's
So
like it's
yeah,
less than $4,000 for this thing, which I know is a
yeah,
lot of money, but like not for. Imagine how much you would spend if you were going to set up all the microphones to do that
yeah,
and the processing, right?
yeah,
So
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. It's yeah. So like we take that mic and we just make a 5-1 track in Pro Tools. So the inputs coming from the IO and Pro Tools are recording 6 channels. So left, center, right, left, rear, right, rear, LFE.
yeah,
Um, but we just set the output to stereo, and Pro Tools folds it down, and it just sounds really good. It's
interesting.
just it's very natural sounding. It doesn't
Yeah,
sound like phasey or weird in any way.
huh.
So that was part of my job. Also, was to submix all of those elements so that the truck and various other places could pick and choose what they wanted to use. And if he
Oh,
wanted to use a
got it.
5-1 mic, he could, but I have a feeling he probably didn't because it's problematic from a
That's a
timing
that's a
standpoint.
lot to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like there's. I'm finding on YouTube a video of Electric Funeral from the Rival Sunset that
Mhm,
I believe was from that. But
mhm,
we'll
mhm,
I'll take a look and see. And if it
mhm.
is, I'll put a link in the show notes. So
Yeah, great,
yeah,
great.
yeah, fun stuff.
So yeah, that was
All
all
right.
that.
All right. Well, that's cool. I had no idea we were going to be talking about any of this, and that's no, that's what I love about being able to do this together. Is it just turns into a little bit of a jam session,
Mhm,
and you
mhm,
you dangle a thread like that, and I'm
mhm.
definitely going to tug on it,
All
Brad.
good, all good. It's great. It was a really interesting show, a really interesting from a
Yeah.
production standpoint. Super,
Right.
super interesting.
Yeah. You didn't in the moment. Of course, you couldn't possibly know uh, how important that audio document might have become, right? And so
You
here
know,
we
they
are.
they talked about not doing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
glad
Yeah.
glad we did. Yeah.
Maybe don't share that story. That's right.
Yeah,
No,
right.
no, it's fine.
I
It's
was
fine.
I won't tell you who they are. How's that?
There you go. That's
All right.
probably best. Although, I mean, that's not. There's nothing wrong with like that. In hindsight today, it seems like, oh my God, you weren't going to do this, but you
Yeah.
don't know what you can't know.
Yeah.
We live in linear time, man. Like
And
it's just how it works.
I could tell you stories about stuff that didn't get recorded, and that's like, turns out to have been just classic. They're not my stories, so I'm not comfortable sharing them here, but like it
Yeah.
happens. Like, man, you didn't record that? Wow.
Oh yeah. No.
Yeah.
And those stories often come out if I know listeners have been told by Robert Scoville himself about
Yeah,
his back.
that's the big one. Yeah.
That's the big
That's the
one.
big one.
And
Yeah.
so he has that story to tell. We'll get him to tell that on Gig Gab Sunday. But yeah, those stories come out, and
Mhm.
man, yep, yep,
Brutal. Yeah.
yeah. But like it is brutal when some pivotal moment. And I'm sorry to refer to a story that we're not going to tell, but it's what's going to happen because it's not our story to
Tune
tell.
in, tune in later. Tune in
Yeah,
for Scoville's episode.
this will bring Scoville back for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like live music is like it is live art,
Mhm,
and capturing it is the fact that we can capture it now is
mhm,
amazing and something we all appreciate.
mhm,
But like it, even when you capture it as completely as technology now allows, which we just spent 20 minutes talking about
mhm.
how and why that's possible, it doesn't capture what it's like to be there, right? And
No.
we get close and we know when we're listening or watching or doing both or whatever, that we are watching or listening to something that gives us an approximation of what it would have been like to be there. And that's awesome because we weren't there. So that's better than not going, unless we get a time machine, and then buy tickets. But, but like, it's okay that some of these magic moments didn't get captured is what I'm trying to get to, and I say that just so that
some of them. Yeah, I guess. I would just say that it's ephemeral as art. Like I get that, and like
yes,
the moment happens, and then it's over, and it's gone. And in some ways, there's a lot to like about that, but it's also, to me, just from an archival standpoint, you need to have this, like, because you don't know how important that moment's going to be.
yeah,
Because it's all well and good to say, "Oh, we did you see the Ozzy show?" But they could have sold 250, 300,000 tickets to that thing, but they had to do it. They wanted to do it in Aston Villa. It was important to them to do that. So I
right,
don't know, was that 40, whatever?
sure,
A
still a
lot of
lot.
people could not be there.
Yeah, right.
So,
By physics dictated that most people who wanted to be there couldn't. That's right.
So to me, even if you just record that and archive it, it's important to have. It's like important to me, even if you're just going to put it in the Smithsonian or something. And
Yeah.
I just think I appreciate the appeal of it being ephemeral, but I also feel like you don't have to put it out. But
Nope.
boy, it'd be nice to have it, don't you think? I mean,
It's
I would
nice
say,
to be
like,
able to make the choice later. Yes.
yeah.
Oh,
Even if it's just,
for sure. I'm 100% on board with this. I was just trying to soften any blows of things that didn't get recorded.
It's hard. Record everything. I'm just saying, record everything.
Well,
you can decide what to do later.
There are mixers now that have features that are, talk about iterative design basically built to record, even if a channel's not hot, record that channel, or at least record the stereo mix out so that if that channel wasn't hot, at least you get something like that. Because
it's not going to be long before that is a built-in feature of every.
Yeah.
Awesome. Every live console, at least every live console that would go out on tour, it's just going to simply be a part and parcel. It's already close.
It's already really close. It's already close on the sub $2,000 and even sub $1,000 consoles that are targeted at just working bands. You put you plug a hard drive in and say record, and you get a multi-track. It's really like it's nothing. You can do that on the Mackie, or the Mackies will do it. The Behringer / Midas, the 32 series of whatever that is. Those. It's almost, like you said, it's not automatic, but it's almost automatic.
It's almost automatic. Yeah.
Yeah. Just hang a hard drive off. Why wouldn't you? Right.
Yeah.
So,
right. You can always trash it.
You can always trash it. And that's, that's why I always encourage bands to record their shows, video too, especially video. 'Cause like you can take that stuff and put it out on socials. You can choose to do whatever you want with it and give your fans something in between when they can come to your shows.
Mm-hmm. That was another thing. When I was working with Rush, they felt like the band, but also the management, felt like it was really important to always have something, quote unquote, in the can that they could release. And I don't know. I worked with them for 20 years, and my impression was a lot of that came from, the fact that Neil took, a pretty long break there. And
it's from an outsider's perspective, and based on the stories that he told, he said he had quit the band and then came back. Essentially,
there was serious reason to doubt that those guys would ever get back together.
But right.
They've, at least from that time on, they were like, they always wanted to have something, sitting ready to go if they could. So
if they could,
again, to the degree that we could, and given the technology of the time, we recorded everything.
Yeah.
So,
and a lot of that has been released. I mean, like it makes its way out in things that are in forms that are meaningful to the fans. So yeah, I think it's great. I mean, as a Rush fan, especially, so well, I mean, it's just how it is, right? So
yeah. We actually talked about, so I'm going to bring this around to this REMI thing.
All right.
We actually discussed.
I want to talk. Do this. It's fine. I want to talk about our sponsors too, but tee this up, please, for me.
I really wanted to talk about the remote solution. We did talk about doing this recording and mixing thing remotely for the Sabbath thing. It was just a little too late in the game to pull it together, but we can get into that.
Well, I want to get into that. Like I said, we'll get there, because now that we're fully nerded up, we're in a good space to digest the next big thing that we're going to talk about here, and we're going to do that soon. Because the next thing that I want to do is tell you about our two sponsors. Because, well, I think a lot of you know that I lean on AI for a bunch of stuff to do with the show and beyond, right? The show notes, identifying which clips we should call out, and all of the coding stuff that I do for the website, for the show, and other stuff too, right, with my other businesses. And I recently started experimenting with Claude, and I gotta say, it is quickly becoming my favorite, right? Especially Claude Code. I threw a gnarly script at it the other night, and it didn't just fix it, it explained the why behind every change. It's a total game changer, just like everything else that I've done with it. And here's the thing, Claude is the AI for minds that don't stop at good enough. It's the collaborator that actually understands your entire workflow and thinks with you, not for you. Whether you're debugging code at midnight or strategizing your next business move, Claude extends your thinking to tackle the problems that matter. The internal and external research capabilities go way deeper than a basic web search. Think comprehensive, reliable analysis with all the proper citations that you would need and all that stuff. And for me, that means I'm not just blasting through tasks. I'm actually learning, building better systems, and getting my creative work done faster. It's like having a super smart bandmate who never shows up late to rehearsal. And let's be real, if Claude could also carry my drums to every gig, that would be amazing. It'll happen. But until then, it's the smartest assistant you can find on stage and off. Ready to tackle bigger problems? Sign up for Claude today and get 50% off Claude Pro when you use my link, Claude.ai/giggab. That's Claude.ai/giggab right now for 50% off your first 3 months of Claude Pro. That includes access to all the features that I've mentioned here in today's episode, Claude.ai/giggab. And my thanks to Claude for sponsoring this episode. And I got a quick question for those of you making your own music. Are your songs on streaming platforms? Spotify, Apple Music, the usual suspects? Cool. Now, here's my real question. Are you actually getting paid for those streams? That's where our sponsor, the MLC, the Mechanical Licensing Collective, comes in. The MLC is a nonprofit making sure songwriters, publishers, and administrators get their mechanical streaming royalties. Every month, they grab the data, match it to your songs, and pay what you've earned. We had Day on from the MLC earlier this summer, and he explained all the ins and outs and what your mechanicals are and all that stuff. I'll put a link in the show notes to that episode so you can go check it out. And look, they've already distributed over $3 billion to more than 55,000 members. That's not coffee money. That's like new tour van, new pedal board, new snare drum, or gold-plated cowbell just because I can money, right? The best part? Membership is completely free. No fees, no gimmicks, just money you might have already been owed, waiting for you to claim it. Look, if you're writing and recording songs, you really need to be getting paid for those. You're supposed to. It's that simple. Because if you're going to always be performing, you should always be earning too. Head to themlc.com today and sign up. That's themlc.com. Don't leave your money on the table, and our thanks to the MLC for sponsoring this episode. All right, it's REMI time. Let's let's talk about this. So this whole idea behind REMI, remote integration for live broadcast, right? That's what this essentially stands
That's
for.
that's our well. So this is funny. Remote Remy, REMI, like the rat in Ratatouille.
Right.
Uh, Remy stands for Remote Integration Model. I don't know how they got REMI out of that, but that's the reference.
REMI.
That's how it is. Um,
Well, because it's REM for remote and I for integration, and we dropped
sure,
model. Sure.
something like that. Yeah,
Sure.
something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so it's actually more common than you might think in the world of sports. It's used, and in fact, if
Oh.
you watch sports television at all or much, you've almost certainly seen it in use as a viewer.
Okay.
So it is essentially you send out ESPN uses it a lot for sort of mid-season college football games kind of stuff. So they don't
And
roll.
yeah, keep going. This is great. Yeah, I
Yeah,
want to
so
talk
that
about what it does, and then we'll
right.
talk about how. Yeah, perfect.
So if you're watching a Major League Baseball game, Fox Sports or whoever has rolled what's called an OB truck, that stands for outside broadcast. It's a truck, it's a 53-foot long trailer, and in that trailer is a video switching system, um, a space for the producer to call the shots,
Yep.
an audio mixing suite, and all the things that go along with that.
Got it.
And they go out and they put a bunch of mics down, and there's probably, I don't know, 15 people in the truck, and maybe another several involved with not to mention the cameraman and all that.
Sure.
So uh,
That's
that's
expensive.
that's a very expensive proposition, and justifiable for a game or a game like the Major League Baseball game, so forth.
Sure.
Now,
Yeah.
where the expense becomes problematic, like so, if you're NBC and you're doing the Olympics, you have to cover all these sports, like the badminton to volleyball to
Curling.
uh, whatever, like all
Sure.
these things, and they all happen at sites that aren't necessarily centrally located. Like they may be all over uh, around Beijing or where
Yeah,
or
right.
LA or something like that. So they
But
may
it
be
could be
miles and miles apart,
hours
right?
drive between
Right,
these locations. Yeah. Yeah.
right,
The Olympics aren't usually all in one. They build
right.
the Olympic Park, but then, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So what they do in a nutshell is set up a central production area, and then they'll just send out a sort of minimal crew with a minimal amount of gear to each of these sites, and the video and audio come back to the central location over the internet. Um, they're so they collect everything in one place, and then they make it into a show and send it up to the satellite. Um, More and more, you're seeing this. ESPN does it a lot for like mid-season college basketball games. They don't roll a $500,000 truck and send 25 people to all these college basketball games. The the arenas of that sort of caliber tend to have the infrastructure built in, and when they collect it all in this a box and they plug the internet into it and they send it off to Connecticut.
Sure.
Tennis is doing this. Soccer is doing this in the Bundesliga in Germany. Does a lot of this. The NHL does some of this. Um, the U.S. Open, for example, where you have the big you know main court, but there's all these other games that are going on. They're not setting up a truck for every one of those. For example, it's we're getting to a point where the truck actually might not be necessary. Um,
Wow.
we got this. I originally had this idea that we were going to collect and So we know, I've already said we record all the multi-tracks from all the shows. But there's also a lot of shows, touring shows out there have a video component. So,
Yep.
if you go see a concert, you see Bruce Springsteen's face on a giant screen. So that's called uh, IMAG, which is image live. So
Okay.
there's a camera, several cameras, maybe 10 or 15 cameras, and uh, you can record the feeds from every one of those cameras. So we had thought, well, we'll just collect this all and I don't know, like FedEx a drive, and you could cut the show and put it on your whatever, uh, fan club
Yeah.
site
Yeah.
or
You
something
sell
like
it to
that.
somebody. Right. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
It occurred to us then that the problem there is that with just time, you're taking it from being a live experience to being a post-produced experience, which is fine, but there is
But it's not
an
synchronous. You're not watching it when it's happening or
right,
near when
right.
it's happening. Right. Yeah.
But you are watching the US Open more or less when it's happening, right?
Right.
And there's no reason you can't, whatever, I'm mixing my metaphors. You
No,
could you
but
could
but
you
if I
could
can
clear
watch a
the
hockey game live that's happening in California, sitting in my house in New Hampshire, why can't I watch a concert live? And of course the answer is I can, and some bands do this, right? So
yeah. So what bands do that do this currently, for the most part, with a handful of exceptions, for the most part, is they have someone out on the tour that
right.
mixes the show, and someone out on the tour that cuts the video, and then they marry them up and they send it out. What we're proposing is sending out some small amount of gear that would just take the feeds and send it to some central location in LA or in Nashville or in New York or London or whatever.
or
And
Kansas. Like it doesn't matter. It's the
it
internet,
kind of
right?
doesn't matter. Well, like the golf does this a lot, and their thing is in Frisco, Texas.
Amazing.
Like they have a big facility there, and like that's what they do. All the feeds come into their thing in Frisco, Texas, and they cut it. And the only people that are, I mean, not every event is like this, but like you'll see these things happen, and the only people that are actually there are the people who set up the mics and the announcers, the people who are calling the game, the match. So it's
Huh.
there's no technical reason you can't do this with a band. But our thinking is, well, this is great. We can do that with that band, but also we have tapped into a resource that could be up to like 250 or 300 tours every year
Yeah.
that we can just, like I said, you have that MADI feed. We can take that and send it to Nashville, and their producer can mix their show and get it out and do it fast enough to be considered live. There is some latency. It's not.
Yeah, but even if it's a couple of minutes or 20 minutes latency, like it's still like you're watching it
So,
while it's happening, not after it.
right.
Not the next
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
Yeah. And like even with sports, it's
Yeah.
a few minutes. It's not
Yeah, it's a couple minutes.
exactly that. Right.
No, yeah, that's
So
why if I'm, a lot of times if I'm watching a game, I have to turn off notifications on my phone because I'll get scores.
I'll tell you what's happening before.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But of course it does. Like there's going to be some latency. I think we've all accepted that. I think we would all still describe that as watching live sports.
Yes.
So
In fact, and there's actually a legal definition, which was within 24 hours.
that's not
So,
live
yeah.
sports, but I get why
No, but I mean,
get why
for
they
live,
lobbied for that.
Yeah, for live. Well, the reason is because they want to be able to show it in every time zone at the same time.
Right.
That's why
That's why
that exists.
Yeah.
So
What we need is Swatch internet time, Brad.
right.
I don't know if you do. I don't know if you remember that. That was that lasted for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Oh,
Swatch
God.
Swatch
What
had
was
this
the
thing.
story? What was the story there?
They said that they divided the day into 1,000 equally long increments, and said that's it. There's no. Sorry for this tangent, folks, but
No, it's
I'm
great.
going to go with it. There's no time zones. If it's, if it's 743 here, it's 743 there. And in some amount of time, it's going to be 744 in both of our places. And that's the end of it. You knew this thing was dead on the vine before it even launched, but it was
what a horrible idea, right?
What a terrible idea, but like interesting. And here we are, decades after it died, talking about it. So there you go. And now we're done talking about it.
So we have done a few sort of tests on this to try to get some data points.
Sure.
We did a New Year's Eve show. We set up in a studio outside of Philadelphia. The show was in Atlanta, and we sent one person to the show in Atlanta, and he set up a bunch of audience mics because we have to augment it. The tours don't typically set up enough to do this, so he set up some
that
audience
makes sense.
mics.
Yeah, I would guess that tours are using audience mics to feed in-ears, and that's kind of the end of it.
Yeah, pretty much that's it. And we took 186 channels of 48K from Atlanta to Philadelphia and mixed the show in ATMOS, and we experienced 125 milliseconds of latency.
What?
So, and we had 4K video. We didn't send all the video streams. We sent one 4K video stream, and also we had comms to talk to our man on the the arena.
Okay.
So, and a cam. So we had a camera. We had a 4K video stream. They provided us. We had comms, and then we had 186 channels of 48K audio.
From LA to where you are in Nashville, is that right?
Atlanta to Philadelphia.
Atlanta to Philadelphia. I don't know what I had. Okay, yeah, okay.
But still several hundred miles. Right?
Yeah.
So it was as a proof of concept. We had an audio mixing engine in Atlanta.
Okay.
It was like the failover in case we lost control.
Smart.
And then so we whatever we were telling the engine to do, the last thing we told it, in case we got cut off, it would just keep doing that.
Oh, I see. So this wasn't a separate. It wasn't a separate mix. It was literally the same mix, just being replicated across the stream.
So, like, if we dropped off, it would just carry on until we got control back. Yeah. And then we had the mix in the engine in Philadelphia, where we were sort of switching back and forth to see how it felt to be mixing something in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to something, and you could feel it. It was like a little funny when we were on the thing in Atlanta, but it worked. And then we sent the ATMOS feed. We didn't encode it. We sent like discrete feeds up to a YouTube site that just nobody had permission to see. So just to
private site.
we could see it, and
so you could see what was going to happen.
And check it out. And I fully expected this to crash at some point because it worked great. There's some cool tricks now. You have to be a little bit concerned about clocking everything. So we're taking MADI feeds from the tour.
Okay.
We have to stay out of their clock. Like, we don't want to interfere with their clocking, because the worst thing that could happen is we somehow get them off their clock and it starts making noise to the PA. Just make this horrible, massive clicking, distorted sound.
Yeah. My listeners have heard that massive distorted clicking sound on the show when I get clock screwed up here, because my system is way more complex than it needs to be. But yes, that's bad.
So we,
in fact, I could cause that if you want, just to give people a little something. No, okay, because I think I turned on the thing to do it right now. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. Anyway, if you hear it, that's what that sound is. It's not pleasant, and you definitely don't want to have it at a live show. So
why is this not happening anymore? I used to be able to turn on this one plugin, and I couldn't use it anymore. The RX voice denoise plugin for when I have a guest in a bouncy room. But now it seems that they fixed it.
We've fixed it.
Of course they have. Of course they have. Because I wanted it to break. Yeah.
So
it'll break next time, folks. That's for sure.
Anyway, we reclock to basically we use the clock on each end, one in Atlanta, one in Philadelphia, and those clocks are on an antenna that's syncing up to the GPS, the clock that's in the global positioning system,
Oh,
which is like synchronous all around the world.
yeah.
So that's how we sync our clock on both ends and reclock the signal they were sending us to uh, our own clock domain. So that there's a thing called the Prodigy we used is a thing called fast SRC, which is just a sample rate conversion. So you're not really imagine like if you do a sample rate conversion, normally you'd be like, well, it was recorded at 98, 96, but I need it at 48. So
Sure.
you would do a sample rate conversion. We're sample rate converting from 96 to 96. So all we're really doing is putting on a new clock. Right?
Okay. All right. That's super nerdy.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Super nerdy. And then we did sample rate convert it again down to 48 to broadcast it.
Oh, I see. But you did the 96 to 96 just to make sure
to get it out, just to make our own time domain. So
that you have your own clock that you don't have to inherit or mess with. Yep.
They have their clock. We have our clock. We're using our clock to sample rate convert from 96 to 96. And
makes perfect sense.
There. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then that way you're not gonna mess with what they're doing, and what they're doing isn't gonna mess with what you're doing. Yeah, I love that.
Exactly. And
okay.
We're not trying to distribute clock all over acre.
Yeah, no. Especially when you said there was 125 milliseconds of latency. I'm assuming that's one way. So yeah, or is it right? So it's 250, which for those of you that don't, I'll do the public math. That's a quarter of a second. But that also explains why the mixer probably felt a little mushy, right? When you were mixing on the box in Atlanta, because you're a quarter a second behind.
Well, we're hearing it 125 milliseconds later. So we're 125. Whatever we're doing, it's happening 125 milliseconds later.
Right.
The round trip of audio, whatever we sent back to there.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it was really just 125. I see. Yeah. Okay.
What we did, it's even.
That's an eighth of a second, folks. Yeah.
Because the audio that we sent them was from the machine in Atlanta.
Right.
So the actual audio latency there was zero, well, not zero, but very, very low.
1 millisecond or something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a handful of milliseconds. Our monitoring was 125 milliseconds.
I see. But also, when you went to do a fader change, there is latency going the other direction too. Yeah. So you're adding a little bit to it there.
So here's our rationale. We're all touring front of house arena A-level concert engineers. We are 125 milliseconds away from the stage. We're totally accustomed to that kind of latency.
Oh my gosh.
Built into the fact that we're 110 feet from the front of the stage. So
I didn't even think about that.
We are all already used to that level of kind of anticipation of a cue. It's built in. So if we're hearing something 125 milliseconds later, that's completely in our wheelhouse. It's totally natural for us.
Wow. I didn't even think about that, Brad. Of course you are. Yeah, it's essentially 1 millisecond delay per foot. We've talked about this on the show. Ish. Yeah. Well, where it comes up a lot is I think when guitar players are notoriously the hardest ones to convert from using just live monitoring to in-ears. And I think a big part of it is guitar players are used to hearing their amps 10, 12 milliseconds later, right? Because they're 10 to 12 feet downstage from their amp. Right. And so I've actually done that where I've put a delay on a guitar player's amp and they're like, oh, this sounds great.
It wouldn't surprise me if that worked.
It feels right, you know. And then what you do is every gig you just shave a millisecond off until you're until you're live.
I completely believe that works.
That's it. And then that works. And you can tell them you're doing it. Like it's an okay brain hack, but yeah.
Funny. So
anyway.
that worked. There's another case study where the Broadway show Hamilton was actually mixed from Australia. It's a show in New York mixed from Australia.
And the audio was happening where?
In New York. The
Why
guy
was
mixed it from Australia.
Okay, so I've never understood why. There's plenty of audio engineers in and around and much closer to New York than Sydney. So
Yeah.
why
I don't
would
know
you
all
do
the
that?
details of this, but
Okay, all right.
it has something to do with COVID in Australia. And
Oh,
yeah, so like the and there's like a handful of people that are qualified to mix that show. So yes, you're
sure.
correct. There's a lot of people who could mix a Broadway show, but they don't know
They don't know that show.
Hamilton, right? They don't know that show.
It's funny. This was our pre-show conversation was about
you don't just step into that.
Me avoiding doing that on a slightly smaller scale, and in person this evening. Instead, I got to do this with you, which was much better.
Okay. So, but like because of your experience with this, that there's hundreds of cues in a show like that.
Yes.
And if you don't, if you aren't very familiar with the show, as programmed as it can possibly be, there's still hundreds of cues in that show. And
Oh yeah.
Not just anybody steps in and mixes Hamilton. So
you are. I in a theater setting, just so people understand, you've got. I don't know, in Hamilton, let's say there's 25 live microphones on people. There's probably more than that. It's probably 50. They have to come on and off at the right times because you don't want backstage conversation being played into the house. You also need to raise up, the person who's singing the lead over the harmonies, if that's the way the mix is supposed to be. Right? All of that stuff. And it's happening, perhaps several times a minute these changes are happening. So I've always likened the person who is mixing the show to yet another musician in the pit. You have to learn the show and play the show. Their instrument is the mixer, but you're learning that show. For sure.
It's a lot. It's a
lot.
Of work.
Yeah, it's really hard.
A lot of it's programmed, but you still
you got to know when to change the cues.
Yeah,
yep.
You really have to be on it. Really have to be on it. So, wow,
that's amazing.
That was a thing that happened. We didn't. So Claire, who we're working with on this stuff, did that.
Okay.
Had the, supplied the gear, and I don't know who figured out the internet. I have to say also, all of this is like, I know what gear goes at the show, and I know what gear goes at and I'm just like, insert internet here. Like, I have no idea how any of that works. Like, I just know I'm gonna get this Cat 6 plug and play. That's all.
And but
I literally New Year's Eve, we're rehearsing, we're running through in the afternoon. I'm literally texting the tech. It's like, hey man, this feels really slow. And he's like, oh, hold on. I don't even know where he is. It's like type something into his computer and it gets better.
Huh. Anyway. It's Claire that's essentially building the black box we keep referring to here. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean it's a bunch of available gear. I mean, there's nothing we're doing that isn't stuff you couldn't buy off the shelf, right? But we're trying to put this into a system designed so that it could just be sitting in the back of a rack on every tour, or like every tour that it makes sense to put it on. And then we can turn it on remotely. So in other words, it's just like plug this into, we'll run a cable out.
If it's grabbing, if this rack mounted unit is grabbing the MADI feed from the mixer and and has Cat 6 out to the internet. I mean, that's fairly, as a networking nerd and putting my other hat on, that's fairly straightforward. I mean, there are things and then on the other end, you have the same thing. You have a Cat 6 and a MADI feed coming out to your thing, and you're
and we
did
this. We did that New Year's Eve show for public internet too. I mean, it's everything's encrypted, and then there's like a VPN. It's just I know no one can get into the tunnel and hack the audio from the show.
It would be worthless data to them if they saw it. Right, exactly.
But it wasn't as though we required dark fiber or like a
Yeah.
dedicated anything. Like we did this on Amazon Web Services for
Yep.
$3,000 basically. So it's not exorbitantly expensive.
It's amazing.
Just getting a truck to come to a show, just to move the truck might be $60,000-$80,000 just to move the truck, and never
And then you're
mind.
not paying for the people inside it yet.
Right. And our thinking is, as nice as some of the trucks out there are, it's not like being in a nice control room with a, a nice set of whatever,
Yeah.
blue horn speakers or something like that. So I think that if we can transport the audio and the video to a facility that's better suited for mixing, or even like it could be theoretically be anywhere with enough bandwidth, so it could go to Bob Clear Mountains, but I don't know. It's like it could go
Yeah.
to
Pick whoever you want.
someone's studio that they can mix it in,
Yep.
and it can happen in real time, whatever that means. So
Yeah, close enough to real time.
Yeah.
This is kind of amazing. The one thing I want to come back to is the idea that this Hamilton being mixed remotely thing, not because that happened, but in theory, that could be a model, and you don't even need to send a front of house engineer into a room. Now,
okay,
I don't think that's like, I know that I've been at shows where that's happened, and I didn't like the way that it sounded. There was a period of time where I believe, I could be wrong, somebody please correct me if so, feedback at giggabpodcast.com. I love finding out I'm wrong. But there was a period of time where the band Fish was prioritizing the sound of their feeds and their live streams over the sound in the room. And they were doing one mix for both the live stream and the room. And that was short-lived for obvious reasons.
100% two different things. There's no question about it.
Well, you can't know if you're sitting in Australia, let's take the Hamilton example, which we know happened. If you're sitting in Australia, you can't know what it sounds like in the room, right? Like you're in your own room. Maybe you've got audience mics that are situated where front of house would be, and that's what you're listening to. But even still,
I don't see a world in the near future where there isn't going to be someone in the room.
Yeah.
Doing a separate mix for the audience. I think that's just kind of
agreed.
Yeah. I think maybe down the road, I've had this conversation, going to switch into another conversation here. There's nothing that the front of house engineer is doing that could not be done by AI. Yeah.
That's true. Sure.
In fact, I don't know. There's a few records out right now that are not horrible that were made by a computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard some of that stuff, and it got, it used to be, it was just awful, like it was awful. But now it's gotten to the point where like you kind of have to really pay attention and get in there and pick it apart to know that it's even a thing. Even this is AI generated, played and mixed this product, and
using, I always forget the name. Suni, I think, is the name of the AI app.
I think that sounds right.
Right.
I haven't used it myself, but yeah.
Suno, S-U-N-O. I have used it, and it's like, it's great for fleshing out an idea, right? Mm-hmm. Like you have an idea. Oh, I've got an idea for a hook of a song or something. Mm-hmm. Let's just run with it, right? And I find AI in that sense is great for writer's block in general. Like I always want to go back and edit what it's created. But
I agree. Even for like emailing and stuff like that, just like I can just vomit my thoughts into
Chat GPT, and it'll come back with a
Yeah.
coherent.
Yes.
I have to reread it.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
once in a while it's not right, but yeah.
Yeah, right. You go through, and I've said it to me. I said it when we were talking about Claude AI before.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic assistant
Okay.
when you know how to use the tool.
Right.
And
So
I could see this. Sure.
Leaving aside whether or not it should or shouldn't be writing and creating music, I can 100% imagine a day where it can mix
Yeah.
your show. I'd like to say that's a ways away, or maybe not even real, but I know when I sit down and do what I do, there's nothing technically it couldn't do. Like,
Well,
so,
and I think about, and of course, this would require these, mid-level clubs to actually invest money in something that they don't realize they need, and so they won't. But the clubs that I play that are, small to mid-sized clubs or whatever, sometimes they have their own system, and the front of house engineer is also like the bartender, let's say, or, the manager.
And you get this at House of Worship's another place where
House of Worship,
it's a volunteer, it's been sort of trained up in it.
Yeah, but like House of Worship is a little easier in a sense than, at least in the sense that I'm thinking about, than like the club that has 4 different bands a week, because at the House of Worship, you're essentially having the same set of performers in there all the time. So you kind of program it and go. I'm thinking about a world where, I'm coming into a club for the first time. They've got an AI mix agent. I write the prompt for it and say, hey, here's what sounds good with our band. Mix the guitars this way, mix the vocals this way, make sure the harmonies are, 2 dB below the leads, except for this one song. And like, you could get really granular. Whereas if I showed up and there's a grumpy sound engineer there, no offense, Brad, and I hand him,
I know the type.
yeah, same. And I hand him a 3-page list of here's what I want you to do in every song. I mean, if I don't get thrown out on my ass, that's a good day, right? You can't do that. But with an AI agent, you certainly can, especially if now there's a standardized way of communicating this. So, it's
but I mean,
interesting.
again, there's like, I look at it and think, really, and you've used AI enough to know that it's all about how you prompt it. Like,
yes.
That's
when the tool becomes valuable.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. But I think that it is technically feasible and very soon that you can set up some fancy mic out in the audience somewhere, and it will take all the inputs and create a perfectly usable mix.
Yeah, well, it may not be a musical mix, right? Like I'm thinking about, and this is, if these thoughts are scaring you, this kind of thing's sort of, in a sense, been happening for a while. I remember talking to Giles Martin about the Love show that he did, in the Cirque du Soleil thing. He put together all the music for that. Mm-hmm. And he came up with a mix, right? That like an automated, that he programmed into automation. So here's how the show's going to go. But every night there was a live engineer standing at the console in the room. And if the crowd was especially noisy and there needed to be a little more guitar at the beginning of Drive My Car or something, the live engineer could do that, right? Like, and adjust season to taste in the room. So, like, again, I don't generally default to AI replacing people. I mean, it has, of course, but when I think about it for my purposes or for your purposes, I don't think AI mixing a gig means you aren't there. I think it means it makes your job better and easier when you can say, okay, because you're already doing some of this with automation. Why not let the AI, do some adapting in real time? I mean, and we have so much of that viewed with different things already. We're not that far from it.
And we talked earlier about how the live experience is
is ephemeral, which is
Yes.
to me another way of saying it's in the moment. And there are things that happen in the moment that, you know, I think it's probably better if a human is reacting to those moments than a machine. But I agree.
Especially if those moments are built to be enjoyed by, or
Right.
are built to be delivered to other humans, right?
Right.
You know, yeah.
Right. So, like you say, there's like an excitement level in the room that's different than other nights, and you know those volume swings may be bigger. Like you know, if it's a crowd is really hyped up, maybe that guitar solo is a couple dB louder than normal, and that's all by feel. Having said all of that, I think I can see a world where you could like say, you know, type in your input list and what you want this to sound like, and then start playing, and it will arrange it so it sounds like that.
I know.
Where you go from there,
Right.
you know,
Right.
that's up to you, I guess.
That's up to that's season to taste.
Yeah.
I mean, we say it all the time that, you know, your front of house engineer is your producer live, right? You know, and if like there are decisions that you are making for bands and entire organizations that like depend on it sounding good to the humans in the room so that they keep coming back, right? You know, but that's in your hands. Yeah.
You're the only person. You're the only person that in the band that really knows what it sounds like.
You're the only one.
Look at that. Yeah.
You're it. You decide what this sounds like, and so that relationship with the artist and understanding what they want. And when you see, oh, wait a minute, those two guys don't usually stand next to each other at this moment. Let me watch this. Let me, you know, there's something different might happen. Maybe I do want to bring not just the guitar up, but the bass player's right next to him. Let's bring them both up so that people can feel that excitement that they're feeling on stage, right? That kind of thing.
It's funny to speak to this a little bit. Like I believe one of the most important things you can do as a live engineer is look at the stage, like watch the show. That I mean, I understand you need to find the knob and figure out the fader you want and all that, but that if you can get your eyes up and watch the show, you will mix the show a little differently. It's the other thing that I have experienced over and over. While the show is going on, at some point, find a minute to step away from the desk. Just step off to the side and watch the show for a minute. It's a completely different experience. I don't know what is going on, what the brain functions are happening, but you hear the show differently when your hand is not on the knob. You hear the show differently when you just go over there for
more than
seconds.
arm's length from the console. Yep.
Don't think about fixing anything. Just go over there and watch the show for a minute or whatever.
Yes.
Get away from the desk because you will hear it differently.
Yes.
And usually it's better. Usually.
Well, but if it's not, now you know what to fix, right?
Right. Well, that might be the moment you realize, oh crap, the vocal is swimming in reverb because you've spent the last minute and a half fussing with the reverb on the vocal and just sort of didn't realize
you had it too loud to get it where you to get the effect you wanted.
And you won't necessarily hear that unless A, you're watching the show, like looking at it, and B, you can get away from get your hand off the knob.
Yep.
And get your eyes on what's going on. I think that makes it completely resets my mind when I do that during a show. And I always try to find a minute to do that. Just get away from the gear. Physically get away from the gear for a second.
Right.
Watch the show.
Right. Yep. That's really good advice. You've said that before, I think at least once when you've been on. I know this is your third, third visit.
Sorry.
No.
I'm repeating myself.
Oh, no. This is a great thing to repeat, because it's so easy to forget when you're mixing, you're in it and you understand the responsibility and you take that seriously and all that. But everyone that you're delivering this final mix to is not sitting with faders in their hands, right? They are just hopefully enjoying the show, right?
That's the idea.
Yeah, getting into the mode where they are, as best you can, being an audience member makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other, and like the audience, no one in the audience cares what the RTA looks like. Nobody cares what it's even, I've had those nights where everything looked technically right, but it was still like, no, this is not working. Like
It
all the
ain't
meters
right.
are in the right place, but it is not right.
Yep.
And those can be the hardest nights because you see one thing and you hear something else, and it's you have to, again, I think stepping out of getting taking your eyes off the screen for a moment, to just take in what's going on could be super helpful.
Yeah.
The other tip is I was given, I probably said this before too, is before the show, mix the first song in your mind. Just go through the song cues. If you have 10 or 12 cues during the song, just sort of quickly step through them.
Yep.
And I think that because often, you've been setting up all day, the band is coming into the sound check. Now there's an audience in there, the lights go down, and there are plenty of times where a lot of what you did during sound check isn't really applying well. And I think if you haven't got yourself in the mind of what the first song is supposed to be, you can just sort of stand there, look, staring at the console going, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to do your cues, but something's not, the band may be over amped, or
Yeah.
the room just sounds really different with a crowd in it. And if you've already done the song in your head, you can focus more on the things you need to change to get the music in the room to sound the way you want it to sound, because you're already in the song before it even started. I think if you wait, you might be halfway through the song before you even really have a handle on what's going on.
The show. Oh, it turns out the show started, right?
Kind of. I mean, you're just not in that headspace.
No, it's that way as a performer too, right? You run out on stage in the dark. You sit down. You count in the first tune, and you're still getting yourself situated. And it's like, okay, what the hell's going on? And finally, it's like, right, we're in the second chorus. I'm already singing harmonies. Like, what's happening here?
Yeah. No, I had this conversation with the drummer, and I was talking to him about, like, I read about this, and it had nothing to do with music. I read about this idea of sort of like, I thought it was athletes, like,
Yeah.
imagine going through your, you know, the the first play of the football game or whatever.
Yeah.
And imagine it in your mind, imagine going through it, and then you'll be much better prepared when you actually go out on the field to do it. And I took that and started doing it, and I found it super helpful. And I was talking to the drummer for a band I was working with, and he was talking about the anxiety he feels when he goes out on the stage, which,
Oh,
whatever,
yeah.
it's real, right? And then he'll
For
say, "Well,
sure.
you got 3 songs into it, and I'm fine."
Yeah.
And so I said, "Well, try this because it's working for me. Just go through the first song in your
Play the
head
song.
before you go out there."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, it totally worked."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. No, it does. Yeah. I mean, a little bit of anxiety before you go out on stage. I always say if I don't have that, that's a sign that I'm doing the wrong gig. Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I still get that.
Yeah. I mean,
It's because the show starts.
We care about what we do. We want it to be good. Yeah. We convince ourselves that we're super important in that moment is what it is.
I'm more worried I'm going to screw it up.
Well, yeah, I mean, same. Hey, listen, man, the lights are on me when that happens, not on you.
That's true. Right. No one leaves thinking that, boy, Brad had a bad night.
Have you, I know you have, and I know we're like way deep. This might be the longest gig gab episode we've ever done here. But if you have a minute now that we're in this, I'm sure you've had audience members come up to you and tell you how to do things better, how to do your job better. Do you have a favorite story of that now that we're right here?
Yes.
Okay.
I do. And yes, that happens. And
of course,
it happened a lot on Rush because honestly, probably half the guys anyway in the audience were probably were engineers.
You and
Or
I have
something.
only ever met in person once, and it was on the R40 tour. We did not know each other. We both knew Paul Kent.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
But you didn't know that I was going to be at this show. It wasn't like Paul texted you or anything. And at set break, I happened to be walking back with my son from the bathroom or whatever, and I saw what I thought was you, and it turns out it was, at front of house. And I just, said, "Hey, are you Brad?" And the look on your face was like, I knew what you thought.
Oh, no.
Here we go again. Right. So, but I didn't have any comments to make, or if I did, I kept them to myself. But, I just introduced myself, and I could see as soon as I mentioned Paul's name, your entire demeanor was like, oh, thank goodness. Okay.
That's not funny.
It's just two humans
I always
talking.
tried to hide, I always tried to be respectful, but I mean, anyway.
You can't be. So anyway, yeah.
My favorite was there was a night when Getty is playing keyboards on Subdivisions, and it's the first song of the show, and the MIDI cable somewhere along the line it malfunctions, and the keyboards stop working. And yeah, I mean, so it's a keyboard song.
That's a
Like,
big
very,
deal.
right?
Yeah, very.
So-
yes. Yeah.
So there's sort of these long spells of nothing, and there's nothing I can do. I mean,
If you're not getting signal, right? Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not there. It's just not there. It's not coming up.
Yeah.
And so they always played 2 sets, and there was a break. So the first set was usually an hour, about maybe just under, and about 2/3 of the first set, this problem kept happening intermittently, where the keyboards would just stop working. So it was, a major problem, and I'm just standing in front of the house going, there's nothing I can do with it.
No, you'd have to walk 150 feet away from
Well, then I wouldn't know
your
what
job.
to do either, because it's
Right.
It's not, someone else's job. Yeah.
Right.
So they get it fixed, do the last handful of songs of the set, and then we go to the break. And two guys come up to me and wave me over, and I'm like, okay, here it comes. Right? Like, okay, I'm gonna start getting.
Yep.
Guy goes, I can't hear the bass. Wait, what? This doesn't even compute. Okay, there's only 3 things happening up on stage.
Yeah, right.
And one of them's the bass. Like, I don't know how you don't hear it.
Huh?
So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I said, did you notice any problem with the keyboards? And he turns to his friend and he goes, did you hear anything wrong with the keyboards? The guy goes, no, I'm not really a keyboard player. And I'm like, wow. I don't know what to tell you guys. I'll work on the bass.
I'll work on the bass. There you go.
I'll work on the bass. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's my all-time favorite.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. It's interesting when people trying to translate the comments of, I would say lay people, but I don't mean that dismissively. I just mean people who aren't educated on how to communicate about sound and music and all that stuff, because I don't have this happen anymore. And I'm not sure why, probably because equipment's gotten better and it's easier to kind of dial in a mix better. But early on, I remember constantly at gigs hearing, the vocals aren't, you're too loud. They'd say just generically, the band's too loud. Mm-hmm. And what I learned most of the time was to add 3 dB to the vocals across the board.
Yeah, right.
And
they're just thinking you can't hear the vocal.
That's what they're saying. It's too loud. Well, what's too? It's not overall too loud. It's that you're not hearing a pleasant mix to your ear. So let me give you more vocals, because that's generally speaking what people want. And then they'd come up and they'd be like, "That's great. Like, great. Thanks for turning it down." You bet.
Yeah. It's funny. There's a lot of sort of psychoacoustics that goes along with that. Like I have had
numerous times, I mean, too numerous to count, somebody would come up and make a comment about their whatever. They don't like the sound for whatever reason. And I would ask them where they're sitting.
Yeah.
I say, "What does it sound okay to you here?" And he goes, "Yeah, it sounds great out here." And then I said, "Where are you sitting?" And they would tell me, and I would say, I'll send the system tech up there to have a listen.
Yeah.
And I would tell them, go up to that section and make sure they see you there. And he would go and almost invariably come back up and say, "I don't know, man, it sounds fine down there." And then that same person would come back to me, the same audience member would come back to me and say, "I don't know what you guys did, but it sounded way better after that."
Yep.
We literally did nothing.
Right.
That's the psychoacoustic effect.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a show where we were playing so there's a corporate show, like the CEO of the show is there, and we start the show and we're playing, and in the middle of like the fourth or fifth song, one of the sound guys comes back to me and says, "Hey, you're over the dB limit." I'm like, "What dB limit? Like, we never talked about any of that." And he says, "It's, I forget the number, 98 or whatever."
Sure.
And I'm like, "Okay, so tell me what the actual limit is." And he's talking to my system tech. Find out what the real limit is, set the computer to that. Let's get a measurement. Whatever, if I need to turn it down, it's fine.
If you got to turn it down, you got to turn it down. Yeah,
This
right.
is the first I'm hearing of this.
Yep.
And he gave him the number and it's a whatever it was, a 10-minute LEQ and all the details, a weighted, so forth. And we plugged it into the computer, and the guy comes back down and says, "Yeah, we talked to the CEO. That's way better." And we've literally changed nothing. All we did was change
The measurement.
the measurement profile. We didn't turn anything up.
The
or anything
computer's
down.
not making changes
Like,
to the rest of the system here,
We
right?
did zero things to the sound.
Yep.
We just changed how we were measuring it.
Yep.
Okay.
People, well, I mean, this is just, I mean, it's not even psychoacoustics. It's just human nature. People want to feel like they've been heard. We all do. Why do you think I've been podcasting for 20 years? You know.
That sounds fair. I mean, it's funny. It's just funny though. I remember getting somebody came to a concert and complained about the sound and like kind of made a huge deal out of it. Like really. And he, I asked if they could reach out to him because I didn't want to get into it with the guy. But just
Right.
reach out to him, ask him where he was sitting. Because I mean, I walked that whole room. I don't know what the problem was. He came back and I looked it up on the chart. And it's like the worst seat. Like
Yeah.
you are like at the top in the corner in the back, and like I know we try to make it sound good everywhere for all y'all, but come on.
Sometimes physics. Yeah. We just went and saw Oasis in Toronto, and this is like a makeshift stadium that they built for it's literally temporary. I think Live Nation built it for like 5 years while they're redoing something else in Toronto. And our seats were kind of maybe not quite, we were up on the side, not quite where front of house was, and not quite where the delay towers were. But when the PA was on before the opening band started, I could hear the delays, and it was like, oh, that sucks. But maybe maybe what I was hearing was the delays bouncing off the back of the arena or something, because it mostly got better once, like about 2 songs into the opener. Either they redialed things, which I can't imagine they would retime delay towers after a show started unless there was a major disaster. But it did basically get better. So
I'll say this. Speaking of that, I had a show where we set up, and it was in a building that had delay speakers built into it.
Yep.
And the house sound engineer never showed up, like all day. We never saw him.
Sure.
Like, okay, well, so we just plugged into the thing that said delay, and we went up in the back and we listened to it, and we measured it and then adjusted it and got the timing of the delays right. Well, the show starts and I get like
I'm hearing it from the back. Like,
Oh no.
it turns out at some point the guy turned up and decided, and it said, "Oh, the delay's not added like
Oh no.
more delay."
Oh, yep.
Yeah, it's like a lot more, like
Like
150
way too much
milliseconds,
more. Yeah.
like way too much more. Like, no. Yeah, so turn ours off. Thank you. Anyway,
Yep. Yeah, it happens. Thankfully, Oasis sounded good enough. I mean, it was
good.
fine. Yeah, it's pretty.
Good to
I don't know what it is about that band. I saw them 20 years ago too. They don't do anything on stage. They don't really have a light show, and yet somehow they are captivating for 2 hours nonstop.
Great songwriting.
It is great. They make I saw them at Madison Square Garden 20 years ago, which was sold out at the time, 18,000 people or whatever, and then this Rogers Stadium or whatever it is, with like 50,000 people. They make every gig feel like a bar gig. I don't know how they do it. I would love to be able to capture that.
Fun. Yeah. Super fun.
Super fun. Yeah. This has also been super fun, my friend, and has lasted almost as long as an Oasis concert. So,
oh my God, 90 minutes.
We're at 90 minutes, man. This is definitely, almost certainly the longest episode I've ever done. So,
okay. Well, cut as needed.
No, I'm not going to cut anything. It was all good. It was all good, man. Okay. If people want to follow you, find you, where can people find you, Brad? Or if you don't want people to find you, that's okay too.
I'm hard to find. I am sort of quit social media. Sorry to say, but
yeah,
it was a little toxic for me. But I'll be out on the Florence and the Machine tour next year.
Okay,
and, come say hi.
All right. And is Diablo Digital still like your thing? Is that something?
Diablo Digital is still our thing.
That's what I thought.
We were acquired by Claire last year. I don't know if everyone.
Congratulations!
Knows that,
I did not know that. Okay.
I am technically a Claire minion now.
Yeah. That's great, man. Right? That's a good thing. Yeah. The acquisition.
Oh, yeah.
All good. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. It was a great segue, and to be able to be much more tightly integrated with their tours and very
amazing. Congrats. I've learned to ask because we ran Mac Observer for 20 whatever years, and then when it was acquired, people were like, "Congratulations." Right? That's a good thing that it was acquired. I'm like, "Yep, no, it was all good." Yeah. Thanks for asking.
It wasn't the hostile takeover.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. No, that's great, man. That's awesome. And you'll be doing Florence next year. That's great. Fun. Yeah. There is one little phrase that we like to say on this show. I know you've said it before, but I'll put it on the screen just in case you've forgotten. I'm certainly happy to say it, but we always like to send our audience off with these three magic words. So if you would do the honors, I'll play the band out, man. Okay.
Always be performing.
That's it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Brad?
Always record, too.
Always be recording. There we go. Maybe that's our show title. I hope I recorded the show. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. Good. Yeah. All right, folks. Thanks. GigGabPodcast.com. Thank you, Brad Madix. And we will see you next week.
My pleasure.